Are you looking for an awesome witchy one-shot to run this Halloween? If so, stay tuned because I might have just the one. Hey folks, I'm William. This is Runeforged. Welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to be giving you my review of The Witch of Underwillow, a one-shot adventure for 1st to 3rd level characters by Merric Blackman. While it's specifically designed for 5th edition, it can pretty easily be converted for Shadowdark or any other D&D adjacent system. I'm going to start off today by giving you a spoiler-light teaser for this adventure. Then I'm going to be giving you a spoiler-filled overview of the relevant locations and encounters. And then, to wrap things up, I'll be giving you my final thoughts on the adventure overall. So, let's get into it. I'm going to start off by playing you a roughly 30-second audio clip that I used as the opening narration for my game, as I think it does a pretty good job of establishing the setting and tone for the adventure. All right, here we go.
You have been to better inns, but at the end of a long day's travel, this one is good enough. The fire is warm, the ale is plentiful, and the food is surprisingly good. A few merchants and their guards mingle amongst the village folk, and the innkeeper, who introduced himself as Imre Feketer, is very good at anticipating everyone's desires. Suddenly, the front door slams open, revealing a distraught young woman. "My daughter!" she cries. "They've taken my daughter!"
From there, the characters go to investigate the scene of the kidnapping, and before long find themselves on a dangerous journey through the nearby forest, seeking out the ever-elusive Witch of Underwillow. Will our heroes be able to confront the witch and return the child to safety, or are things not quite as simple as they've been led to believe? All right, so that was your teaser for the Witch of Underwillow. If you think you might eventually be a player in a Witch of Underwillow game, I suggest you stop watching this video now and send it to your GM. But before you go, I do plan on making more videos like this in the future. So if you don't want to miss out on those, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. All right, so consider this your final spoiler warning, as we are now officially entering hard spoiler territory. After a short discussion with the distraught young woman, the characters learn that a pack of wolves kidnapped her daughter and have taken her back to the witch's lair in a nearby forest. Shortly after the party gives chase, they're ambushed by a small group of wolves along a narrow forest trail. After dealing with the wolves, the trail eventually leads to a great willow tree at the heart of the dark forest. After descending into a dark hole at the base of the willow tree, the characters come to a series of 3 doors. The middle door has a golden, glowing keyhole and is magically locked. The left and right doors lead to rooms where the party must overcome 2 puzzle-adjacent challenges that, if failed, result in combat encounters with skeletons and animated armor, respectively. But success in each of these rooms rewards 1/2 of a magical golden key needed to enter the witch's lair. What happens next is largely dependent on which version of the adventure you chose to run, as well as how your players react to the situation. This could either be a straight-up combat encounter with a presumably evil witch, or it could be a social encounter with a non-aggressive witch who merely wanted to test your party's prowess before sending them off on an even more dangerous mission. The default version of this adventure says that the witch has lured the party to her lair under false pretenses, as in the baby was never real at all, and that some of the townsfolk were in on the deception. But I decided that ending was a bit unfulfilling and decided to make use of one of the alternate endings presented at the end of the adventure. More on that in just a minute. Overall, my group had an absolute blast playing through this adventure. I am a big fan of short, relatively simple adventures that pick a single cohesive theme and stick to it. And I think the Witch of Underwillow actually does that very well. I especially liked the 2 puzzle rooms, which are designed to make the players think a little bit outside of the box, but don't actually bog the game down too much, as worst case scenario, they can just fight their way through, though at the expense of valuable time and resources. At a trim 8 pages long, this adventure is very easy to run, even with minimal prep, though I do recommend reading all the way through it at least once before you run it, largely so you can choose which of the alternate endings you may want to use, and so that you can be foreshadowing that ending from the beginning. I also think this adventure does a really good job of capturing that classic witchy feel, while also providing some fun little twists as possible alternatives. That said, I do think this adventure works best as a classic "The Witch Stole My Baby" story, instead of the fake baby story that's presented as the default. Switching gears a little, I was a little bit disappointed that the adventure did not come with any maps, especially for the Underwillow location. I don't think it would have been particularly difficult to run this adventure purely theater of the mind, but I really like having a map, so I made one for myself. And I'll put a link to that map as well as the other maps that I used for this adventure down in the description so that you can use them for yourself. Another minor issue is that at the beginning of the adventure, it does say that a group of 10 wolves were responsible for kidnapping the baby, but you only ever encounter about half of those. This inconsistency led to some paranoia on behalf of my players, and they ultimately ended up barricading the entrance to the willow so that those wolves did not sneak up behind them while they were fighting the witch, which was a very good idea, but ultimately unnecessary, as the adventure doesn't really mention those extra wolves ever again. But my only major complaint, and one I think is likely to keep coming up as I continue to do these reviews, is that I didn't find the final encounter to be particularly compelling from a combat or mechanical standpoint. With AC 10 and only 16 hit points, the witch doesn't really feel like much of a threat, especially if she doesn't have the opportunity to act first in initiative order. But I think my biggest issue is that the fight feels very swingy, and I think that the outcome of the fight is going to be largely determined by how many PCs the witch is able to sleep before they manage to attack. In my game, I had the witch cast sleep at level 2, and it slept about 40 hit points worth of characters, which I'm pretty sure would have affected the entire party if they were all still level 1. And that probably would have resulted in a TPK, which if you've seen any of my other videos, you know that I am not opposed to, but I'd rather it not be the result of a single spell that doesn't even give the players a chance to save. Also, aside from sleep and maybe some invisibility related shenanigans, the witch doesn't really feel like much of a threat, and she certainly doesn't do much in the way of damage. There are some caveats here because my party was level 2, not the intended level 1. And there are some rules that explain a way for the witch to possibly get surprise, which does help a little bit. But again, it just didn't feel like enough to make her as much of a threat as I wanted her to be. In my game, I gave her the Acid Arrow spell instead of Alter Self and slightly bumped up her hit points. Then I added an entire second phase to the fight that triggered when she was reduced to 0 HP, where she revealed herself as a sea hag and retreated deeper into her underground lair, luring the heroes into a dangerous game of cat and mouse. If you're interested in hearing more about that encounter, I'll be putting out another video in the very near future that recaps my group's playthrough through this adventure. So definitely be on the lookout for that. But even if you don't want to add a whole second phase to this encounter, there are plenty of other things that you could do instead. Basically, my thoughts are that this is the witch's lair, and she knows that the heroes are coming. So I feel like she should have at least 1 or 2 sinister surprises waiting for them. And I was a little disappointed that those surprises weren't detailed in the adventure itself. But I'm curious, what changes would you make to the witch encounter in order to spice things up? Bonus points for any answers that play into classic witchy tropes, are well balanced for first or second level characters, and are easy to track or manage, at least on the GM side. Let me know down in the comments. Okay, so what are my overall thoughts on The Witch of Underwillow? Well, unsurprisingly, despite a few minor issues, I really enjoyed this adventure. Not only is it quick and easy to run, it's also right up my alley in terms of setting and tone. I especially enjoyed the 2 puzzle rooms, which I think did an excellent job making the players think outside the box, while not completely grinding the adventure to a halt when they weren't able to come up with the intended solutions. I will say that I don't love the twist ending that's presented as the default for the adventure, but I do appreciate that several alternative endings were provided. Also, I found the final fight with the witch as written to be a little bit lackluster. But again, that was a relatively easy fix that ultimately led to a very fun and memorable encounter. Anyway, if you think you might want to run The Witch of Underwillow for your own group, you can pick it up on either DriveThruRPG or the DM's Guild using the links down in the description. If you do end up buying the adventure through one of those links, your purchase will help to support the channel at no additional cost to you. And if you decide to do that, just know that I very much appreciate your support. Best of all, the adventure only costs $1.50 US, which I think is a pretty phenomenal value for the roughly 3 hours of entertainment that it provided for my group. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this review of The Witch of Underwillow. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day. Bye.